Again, welcome. If you are just joining us, we're going to get started momentarily. Okay. We will have some time for our neighbors to continue to join us, but I want to kick us off. And again, thank you for tuning in to this month's version of the Ward 5 monthly public safety call. We are thrilled to have a number of guests with us. Candace Catalan, Community Engagement Specialist with the Office of Gun Violence Prevention. You may recall she joined us during last month's call, but we ran out of time. And so we're thrilled to have the Gun Violence Prevention Office back with us. We have Megan Marie Fowler Finn, Chief Administrative Officer for the Office of Gun Violence Prevention. We will have a stand-in for 4D Commander Lavenhouse. We will be joined by 4th District Captain Chapman, and thrilled to have him to share updates about what's happening in 4D. And then we will have 5D Commander Altieri. I wanted to start by, again, reframing the purpose of these calls with a bit of good news. The good news is that across the district and in Ward 5, both across 4D, 5D, and 3D, we are seeing violent crime trending down. We are also seeing crime generally trending down relative to this time last year. We do know, however, last year was an anomaly. And so we still have quite a bit of work to do because many would agree there's still too much violent activity across our ward and across the city. But the good news is that it seems like many of the strategies that are being implemented are taking effect and are working. And so we will share more about that. Also, I wanted to highlight some of the work that my office has led and been a part of since the last time we talked. We have most recent, and next slide, we have led a number of community-led engagements, including 2 cleanups in Fort Lincoln and in Eckington, as an opportunity for us to engage with neighbors, to lend a helping hand, while we also work towards more long-term sustainable solutions. We are working with agencies like DPW and others to ensure that our communities and neighborhoods are safe and clean, but we are also rolling up our sleeves and helping communities pick up trash. We will be engaging in a number of additional cleanups throughout the spring, and so stay tuned for those updates. We also teamed up with the Trigger Project, who sponsored free haircuts and hairstyles for a number of young people across Wards 5, 7, and 8. Trigger Project operates in Ward 5's Carver Langston community, and I continue to think that the best strategy to combating violence and crime is preventing it before it starts. And the work that Trigger Project does day in and day out is certainly all about prevention, and we really appreciate their work. My team participated in the Safe Passage convening recently held at Thurgood Marshall Academy in Ward 8. For those that may not be familiar, Safe Passage is a citywide operated program that is dedicated on some school community routes where we leverage CBOs and other contract teams to ensure that our young people can get to and from school safely. I have advocated time and time again that we need to expand the Safe Passage program, and I reiterate that request now. Much of Ward 5 is not included in the Safe Passage program, and there's quite a bit of work that is needed to ensure that we improve the program's efficacy, namely convening the providers, making sure there's open lines of communication from schools and Safe Passage contractors, and making sure that there is more intentionality in training. More to come on that, but my team was part of the ongoing conversations around Safe Passage and how we can improve that program. Tomorrow, my team will roll out my truancy legislation, which has been a long time coming. There have been several bills from council members. The mayor is also rumored to be planning to roll out a bill to combat the very high numbers of absent and truant students in the district, where in high school, on average, some 70+% of students are chronically truant. A report recently published by the Deputy Mayor of Education had said last year, on any given day of the school year, some 13% of district students were absent from school. We have a fundamental problem in our system, and that is why I believe that system needs to be revamped, not just tinkered with, but absolutely revamped. My legislation, the Showing Up for Students Amendment Act, will seek to do several things. It will, one, shift the burden to the district and district agencies from schools. Right now, at 10 absences, there is a referral to CFSA for students 13 and younger. For students 14 and older, at 15 absences, there is a referral to the courts by way of the Attorney General. My legislation will shift the referral system so that at 7 absences, DHS, Department of Human Services, engages with the family of the student to provide wraparound supports through its case management systems to disrupt what is going on. We know many of our students are facing housing insecurity, food insecurity, violence, transportation issues, and the list goes on. The agency best suited to deal with those types of issues, I believe, is DHS, not CFSA. So again, at 7 absences, DHS will get involved and work with that family through a case manager model. And we delay the referrals to CFSA and the courts by 10 days. So instead of 10 days for CFSA, a student thereafter would be referred to CFSA at 20 days. Instead of 15 days for the courts, older student would be referred at 25 days. That, in effect, would allow for a longer runway of intervention by DHS. The bill will also expand the definition or the allowance of excused absences to include students' real and lived experiences, housing insecurity, or maybe there was violence impacting a student's loved one or family. The legislation will call out very specific incidents that will be excused moving forward. The legislation would require OSSE to own the referral process that is currently, in many respects, put on the backs of schools. And it would require OSSE to provide targeted tiered support to schools that have high numbers of absenteeism. Some of our schools in the district on any given day have upwards of 50% of their students absent. It is time that OSSE gets involved and supports these schools so that we can turn things around. There is also efforts in the bill to streamline how absences are reported to the school and how the school will report those absences to relevant agencies. And last but not least, the bill will quantify educational neglect as any student that misses 30 days of school that are unexcused, those absences that are unexcused, whereas it is the fault of the parent that child is not showing up to school, and that parent has not taken advantage of any effort by DHS or any other district agency to change course. To put that more simply, we will finally quantify what educational neglect means in the district. Right now, there is a neglect statute, but educational neglect is vague. And as a result, CFSA and other agencies are slow to intervene, even when students have 30, 40, 50, 60 days of missed school. More to come, but the highlight and the headline around this truancy legislation, or the Showing Up for Our Students Amendment Act, is for early intervention so that we can get more of our students back on track. I am of the mind, and I would hope that many would agree with me, that if we do not fix the problems earlier in our system by having more of our students show up for learning and making sure they have a promising path in their educational trajectory, we are going to see more issues further down the line by way of violence and other issues. And so more to come on that. And then lastly, I just want to highlight some of the feedback that came out of last month's call and a subsequent Civic Association meeting that led to last Friday's AirTag distribution in 4D in Ward 5. So last month, I heard from, I believe it was Commissioner Lucio and other Ward 5 neighbors that live in 4D, which is much of Ward 5 that is north of Michigan Avenue, that they were interested in AirTags, just like 5D. 5D had been selected based on data for AirTag distribution. However, 4D had not. At a subsequent community meeting at the North Michigan Park Civic Association, I heard similar feedback from residents that they wanted an AirTag distribution. From that, I advocated directly with Chief Smith. And I'm glad to say that she and Commander Lavenhouse made it happen. And so last Friday, in Ward 5, all of 4D residents were able to pick up AirTags, which is just a small way of improving safety around our community. I want to stop there, but just providing these updates to say that the work is constant in an effort to keep us safe. And we look forward to continuing to engage with community partners, MPD, district agencies, and leaders alike to ensure that we continue to drive down rates of violence in our community. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our partners at the Office of Gun Violence Prevention. And so I am happy again to welcome Candace Catalan and Megan Marie Fowler-Finn. And with that, I'm happy to turn it over.
Thank you for the welcome. And it seems like you say my name with a question mark. If you're getting it right, you're getting it right. So
awesome,
thank you.
Awesome.
So as he said, and again, thank you for not just inviting us, but bringing us back and keeping your word on that piece so we can definitely share with your neighbors, our neighbors. So Candace Catalan, Community Engagement Specialist with the Office of Gun Violence Prevention. And Megan Marie, did you want?
Yeah, Megan Marie Fowler-Finn, Chief Administrative Officer. And yes, thank you so much for inviting us back again.
So the Office of Gun Violence Prevention, we're 2 years old. So we were birthed after the transition of the Emergency Operations Center building blocks, which was, and what we do at the Office of Gun Violence Prevention is we coordinate the district-wide public health strategy for gun violence prevention, and that is called Building Blocks DC at this time. And what that looks like is there is coordination and collaboration taking place through DC government, resource allocation, policy, program accountability, research evaluation, community engagement, partnership, and of course, communication amongst those partners and amongst the community. Our office is small, so but mighty, right? So we currently are staffed with a Chief Administrative Officer, that's Megan Marie Fowler-Finn, Policy and Program Advisor, Data Scientist, Community Engagement Specialist, and we have 4 grant monitors who are also credible messengers. So this is just a diagram of what that public health approach looks like. Oftentimes we talk about it, but what does it really look like? And if you can see, Office of Gun Violence Prevention is not necessarily in the center, but they have a space where they're touching every cluster of the government. And that's what that coordination and that collaboration looks like. One thing that we do in our office is we have our Building Block Mini Grant Program. This is an opportunity to empower the community to implement their solutions to gun violence. So to date, we have awarded $2.6 million in over 282 community grants directly into the community. So what does that look like? The grants currently are awarded in amounts of $5,000 or $15,000. They are used to conduct programs, events. What those programs look like? Trips. They look like community gardens. They look like murals. They look like healing circles. They look like panels and conversations that are led by youth talking about the solutions or how gun violence has impacted their lives. It looks like Rolling Away from Violence, where we activate or where community partner opportunities for deserving youth, deserving children. She activates Anacostia Skate Pavilion. So during the summer, all hands on deck. The people are outside, and it's a time to time to celebrate peace and celebrate each other and have just a good time. So any of those programs, events, and or projects will hit one of these areas or all of these areas: community wealth, community revitalization, and community healing. These are monitored by our grant monitors. I want to take a moment to talk about that because it's easy for some of what I've seen in the past. If we have monitored programs, we have people who are monitoring grants and how that's being funded. They don't necessarily know the community. They don't know the people. They can't necessarily say who should be there and maybe who shouldn't be there. However, that's something that our credible messengers, they're experts at. They're able to say, guess what? This program targeted the right people. It happened at the right place. And it was the right person facilitating that program. So we pride ourselves in saying that our credible messengers are experts. They're not just the monitors and just the eye. They're experts at seeing what the community looks like and saying that this is impactful in that community. So we're in Ward 5, right? So we wanted to talk about some of our building block grantees who are in Ward 5. So starting from Miss Cookie, Miss Gina Reed, Bring It to the Table. Amy Jacques Garvey Institute takes place in Ward 5 as well. The Open Goal Project happens in Ward 5 at several record centers in Ward 5. And at the bottom, we'll see Parking Lot Palooza. This is something that happened last year. She was one of our newer grantees, and that's the Potomac Marines, the Young Marines program. They had not a back to school, but more like a summer block party that happened, and that was also funded by Building Blocks grant dollars.
And we want to show you a quick video of one of the great Ward 5 grantees.
Uh-oh, I don't know if we can hear.
We got to get the sound on.
Yes.
So while she's pulling that up, I'll talk about Miss Cookie and Bring It to the Table. Miss Cookie does her work, and usually in Brentwood Rec Center is where she activates her programming out of that space. About 2 years ago, we, the grant monitoring team, the credible messenger team, community engagement team, participated in Go Teams activated for 4th of July. And the team went out there and they saw what Miss Cookie did. Miss Cookie was very adamant about, guess what? I'm doing this work. I didn't do this with the government's dollars. I didn't do this with anyone's help. This is what I saw needed to happen for my community. So Miss Cookie had the grill out there. She had the youth and the youth, seniors, everybody that was fully engaged. She had t-shirts for her folks. She was not playing about her community, right? She came ready. And that was an opportunity for grant monitors to say, well, you're already doing the work. We encourage you to apply for a Building Blocks grant. And that's exactly what happened. Now, it took Miss Reed, she became a grantee about a year later. She said she applied for about a year until she was actually awarded the grant. But since then, she has been a recurring grantee, and she has continued to do the work regardless, on cycle or off cycle of our grant program. She is doing the work. So we want to just hear a little bit about Miss Cookie.
So I had to come back and save somebody else. I was never exposed to other things. I always knew about drugs and guns and all that other stuff as a young girl. So someone came and said, hey, it's better things outside of these streets. And they showed me the path. So I have to keep giving back. Because a lot of these kids need toiletry. A lot of these kids need socks and underwears. A lot of these kids don't even have a pillow to sleep on. So one of the things we did, we took them to the store. We thinking they're going to buy candy and stuff. These kids went to buy tank tops. These kids went to buy socks. These kids went to buy electric toothbrushes. So when we found out what they needed, then we said, hey, this is the things our community needs. So let's start getting them that. My name is Gina Reed, and the name of my nonprofit organization is Bring It to the Table. And, you know, our mission is to prevent the cycle of the violence was going on in my community and the city as well.
We're grateful for the work that Ms. Cookie is doing and constantly does, even before she became a Building Blocks grantee. And I want to just take a moment to say that Ms. Reed does have a nonprofit, right? However, the Building Blocks grant opportunity is not open to individuals who have a nonprofit or LLC. It is open to just a community member. Brother, sister, cousin, pastor. Maybe I don't have a nonprofit. Maybe I have no organization or no business, but I know that I want to engage people in my community, and I know that it can be helpful and it can help to reduce or eliminate the gun violence in my community. You're eligible to apply. So oftentimes those people may not be on these calls because they're doing the work, right? So we encourage you all to let folks know, if you're on this call, let them know you're doing this work. It's beautiful work. It's impactful work. It's necessary work. We want you to share this opportunity with them, because maybe they can become a Building Blocks grantee and the government can just be a tool for them to implement their answers.
That's awesome. And I'm very familiar with Cookie and the great work that she's doing. I'll wait till the end of your presentation, but I do want to just underscore that everyday Washingtonians can apply to that grant, and I know it's made a difference in the work of so many.
Thank you for sharing that, and you're absolutely right. Another piece that comes out of our office is making sure that the transparency of this work is shared with district residents. So Megan Marie Fowler Finn is going to take us on a journey of the data journey, right? People who love those numbers, who want to see where the dollars are going, where are the shootings happening. This is an opportunity for you to understand. She'll walk you through the dashboards, and she can also tell you where to access them yourself. This is a public dashboard. Everyone can access it. And this is another piece that our data scientist, Ralph Morana, he does amazing work out of our office. And to be able to actually capture the information and plug it and make it a user-friendly tool, that's a skill in itself.
Oh, thank you, Candace.
Sure.
Yeah, as Candace said, all of this is on our website, buildingblocks.dc.gov, and we have a little data tab right here. So first thing I'm going to do is just give you an overview and look at gun violence last 7 days and in 2024, and then we can dive into Ward 5 specifically. So in the last 7 days, we have a map of what's happened in the last 7 days. And you can see over on the right-hand side, each of these incidents and where they occurred. Unfortunately, yesterday, one incident occurred in 5F and one occurred in 5D. So you can check this to see, what's going on, keep up to date with what's happening. These polygons, these blocks that you see on the screen, are the ones and cure areas. So Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement and the Office of the Attorney General with Cure the Streets have areas where they have extra community engagement and violence interventionists in the field. And we can get into a little bit more of that later. Scrolling down, you can see another chart that shows you how things have been going this year, how things have been going over the past several years. And so, as Councilmember Parker mentioned, thankfully, we have been able to turn the tide a little bit in FY24. We are down 34% in assaults with a deadly weapon with a gun and homicides with a gun. All of our information is focused on guns. But you can look at this in other ways. You could look at robberies as well. What we can look at is specifically in Ward 5. And you can see Ward 5 is also down 34% this year in assaults with a deadly weapon with a gun and homicides with a gun. And you can see the trends over time, well below the last 4 years, average of the last 4 years in March. So that's great. Hope that trend keeps improving. And you could even look at get down to your A and C if you wanted. We can come down here to just 5A. Sorry, scrolling on my screen. And see 5A is, up slightly 1 from last year. There's also very small numbers, so 100% is a little misleading, but you can see, how you can get down to the nitty gritty for how we've been doing over the past several years. Next, we're going to look at some maps. And first, to focus on the city and where Ward 5 is. So you can see here, Ward 5. So far this year has had 20 ADWs and homicides, which is, again, down 6 from last year. And you can see they are less than half of what Ward 8 and Ward 7 are. So that's your view of where Ward 5 is. Now we can take a look at more in-depth details about Ward 5. And we can see the ANCs and how each of them have done on a map, around Bennion Road. They're still down, obviously not where we want it to be at all, but still down a little bit from last year. So people can get as in-depth as they want. And I apologize if I'm missing questions. We can get to those. So another thing that I wanted to show you, coming back to the top, is that you can see which ones and cure areas serve Ward 5. So we can see in Ward 5, here are your ones priority communities serviced by Ward 5 Violence Prevention Network. As well as, I believe that's it, Ward 5 Violence Prevention Network. And so you also have some Cure the Streets areas, which are in Sursum Corda, Trinidad, Ekin Instruction Circle areas. So really you can explore. We really want people to understand and know what's going on and be able to find this information and understand it as easily as possible.
That is super helpful. I'm going to ask questions as we go along. There was one, we see that you could break it down by ANC. Can you go further to a single member district within that ANC? Or is it at the ANC level?
Yeah, I think ANC is we have PSAs, but we do not have the SMDs right now.
Got it. Okay. So, Commissioner, for that question, we have PSAs or the ANC, but not SMDs. So thank you for that.
I wanted to ask Megan Marie, will it be helpful if when selecting that ANC and then toggling and zooming in and out, would you be able to see it then?
No, but we can think about adding SMDs as another layer. So we can get back to you on that.
Okay.
Awesome. And just to state the obvious, so when you are doing these comparisons, I know you're filtering, but is this capturing all incidents involving a gun, or is it just?
Yeah, so let me reset this so we can see everything. Okay, so right now we're looking at assaults with a deadly weapon and homicides with a gun, but we could instead look at robberies with a gun. And we can see in March, we're still slightly better than we were last year. Last year in March was rough. But February and January are just kind of in the middle of the road. So while the city is really trying to do a lot of great work on robberies, there's still ways to go.
And this tracks with what we know, that overall violent incidents are decreasing, and I know Commander Altieri will highlight this, but we are seeing more incidents involving guns in general. But the good news here is that we're seeing a steady decline from January to February to March in Ward 5 of incidents involving a gun. So that is a good news.
So thank you all for having us. If there aren't any more data questions, just wanted to say thank you again for having us. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. We have dropped the link to the website in the chat. I know there was a question, and Candace, it may be worth just elevating the response to everyone. It was around the grant process and the timeline.
Sure. So I did answer that in there. Just to share with everyone, we have 3 cycles a year: a winter, a spring, and then a summer. Our summer cycle is usually the largest cycle. So no, it's not too late to apply for the summer cycle. And then you can look at our website, check back on our website. You can follow us on all socials, and that's all OGVP DC. Twitter is DC OGVP DC Gov. And if you follow us there, we definitely post when it's time to apply. So please look back on our website, check our socials, and there we will let you know when the application is ready to is open and open for call to application. Yep. So
Awesome.
summer, springtime, we have just notified those awardees today. So look forward to seeing the work in the community from Building Blocks DC grantees. However, if you're looking to apply, then please look back in early May.
Awesome. Awesome. And so I would highly encourage neighbors who want to roll up their sleeves and be a part of the solution, and or may know a group and or individual that's doing good work, but maybe doesn't have the financial capacity to do it at scale, to really consider these grant opportunities.
Council member, if I may,
Please.
oftentimes neighbors are intimidated by the fact that there's an application process. This application process was created with our neighbors in mind. So please don't think this is a 7-hour process. You need to hire a grant writer. It is created so that anyone can apply. If you do not, if you're not awarded the first time you apply again. Like I said, Ms. Cookie, she applied for a year, right? So she at least submitted 3 grant applications, 3 to 4 grant applications before becoming awarded. And now she has come back several times as a grantee. So I encourage you all, please, if you're doing the work, if you know someone who is doing the work, share with them this opportunity and encourage them to apply again if they're not awarded.
Awesome. And then one more question that we just got through. I'm going to paraphrase this, but do you have any proactive tools via your office that can help stem gun violence that is impacting communities?
So our team's direct service is through the grants program, and the rest we help coordinate with the rest of the agencies who are doing on the ground community work. But I do know that there are MPD and DPW, Public Works. A lot of these agencies are working together to improve these issues.
Absolutely. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
I'm a big fan of the work of the Office of Gun Violence Prevention. And if we are to get violence under control in the district, it can only include an effective strategy of combating guns. So thank you again for being here. That is a great segue to our 5D Commander Altieri, who I'm sure will talk at length about strategies his team is employing to combat gun violence, but also to improve safety generally in Ward 5. Commander, I'll turn it over to you.
Hey everybody, how you doing? My name is Sylvan Altieri. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the commander for the 5th District. Hold on one second, I'll put my information in the chat for you. So there's my cell phone and my email address. So yeah, we are working hard at 5D. Our violent crime is down, our property crime is down. Would I like it to be lower? I would. But that's, we're working with what we got right now. So right now, year to date, our violent crime is at 16%. Our property crime is at 9%. We have an overall 10% reduction in crime. Last year, we talk about what happened with everything going on. If you look, we had a big jump from March to April. April, I believe we had 42 robberies. And if you look at the correlation between the robberies, what you're going to see is a lot more motor vehicle thefts. That's kind of when the Hyundai Kia thing really kicked off. People were stealing the cars, using to commit more offenses. As the summer went on and we did things like the robbery suppression initiative and we started some programs here, it kind of brought those motor vehicle thefts down and also brought the robberies down as well. Right now, our robberies are up 1% from where they were last year, but we've not surpassed what we had last March. Our ADWs we're doing great on, and that's kind of what they were talking about earlier, not just shootings, but ADWs, any type of assault that could involve any sort of weapon that could cause death or serious bodily injury. Those are down by 53% from where they were last year. And last year, at the beginning of the year, January, February, March, we came in with a decrease already. So we've been able to actually go lower than what we were last year, even though last year was a decrease in the previous year for the ADWs. So I'm really happy about that. Our thefts are continuing to go downward. We're doing retail theft operations once a week. I wish I could do them more, but the way we kind of have to spread our staffing out, we have to take small bites. But we've been working with retailers because we have to keep these businesses in DC, so you guys have places to shop. And of course, so we have a tax base and, you know, businesses have a place to employ people. So we're going to keep doing that. CVS has been a great partner with that. REI, Home Depot, a lot of businesses in the 5th District have really been working with us, letting us do that. We also started a package theft initiative, which you might have seen on the news. We started here at 5D. That's expanded outward now to the rest of the districts, which is decoy packages. Again, you know, we go to things, we talk to people. They're upset, obviously, about violent crime, but then also people want a quality of life. So they are bothered by the fact that they can't get a package delivered. So something like the package theft program, we do it once a week here. And what it is it's a way for us to go out. We put a package out with a tracking device in it. We have volunteer officers working overtime to do this mission with our crime suppression guys, and they lock people up stealing the packages. You know, to some people, it might not be a big deal. To some of you, I'm sure it is, because I get a lot of complaints about stolen packages. To me, it's a way to modify behavior. A lot of our package thefts are repeat offenders. It's people who do this over and over again. They can be, there's different scenarios that would lead them down this path. Not so much organized package theft like you see on videos in the suburbs where people are going out and stealing stuff house to house. A lot of our stuff is committed by 1 or 2 people acting alone. But my intention with the program is, hey, they're going to wonder the next time this happens, are you the guy is this the day the police are going to come arrest me? So we're hoping that changes the behavior. That's expanded outward now to all the districts are doing it as well. So hopefully we're going to continue on with that. We have new cameras coming in April. We picked locations on that based on violent crime. So those should be starting the installs in April. We started the drug-free zones. The first drug-free zone we did was in Trinidad. I feel it was pretty successful. We had some good stuff from it. We actually, the community seemed to be appreciative of it. So that was good. Nobody seemed to be, nobody seemed to react negatively to it that we were down there dealing with it. Right now we're doing another one. It's in 506, 507, which is the border of those 2 PSAs. It goes from Holbrook over to down Maryland Avenue, back up Neal, and it encompasses part of Bladensburg Road. It's next to Starburst Plaza. So we started that today. We already had 2 arrests there in the drug-free zone today. They weren't for drug C1 violations, but they were for theft and shoplifting from the CVS that is inside the drug-free zone. So, we're hoping to continue on with this, and hopefully something the community wants it and still working. If you have any suggestions, comments, you want a drug-free zone somewhere, you want to learn more about it, please, you can reach out to me via my email. What I would say is this: the drug-free zones are picked by violent crime, which is like robberies, shootings, homicides, dangerous crimes, which are people with guns, and then complaints for quality of life crimes such as drug sales and things like that. So because our crime has decreased, we actually had single digits for the first time in a long time in ADWs last month. We came in with like under 10 ADWs last month, right? And the reason that is I believe part of it is we started these high concentration overtime zones. The department was gracious enough to give me overtime. So we looked at zones where there's traditional community beefs. We put officers in those areas. not to harass anybody, not to do anything like that, but to be present, to interact, and to let people know they're there. And in those areas that last year we were having a lot of homicides, a lot of shootings, we're having very little violent crime right now. Because of that, some of those areas want drug-free zones, but we don't have the data on violent crime. However, if you feel like you see stuff, and I'm not telling you to call the police for random things, but if you see drug activity and things like that, please make sure you're calling that in because that's tracked. So one of the ways we decide on where these zones are going to go is how much data we have, how many calls, complaints do we have for a particular area. I'll give you an example. 7th and Franklin up in Northeast, we get a lot of complaints for narcotic sales. We don't, the last few months, haven't had a lot of violent crime stuff up there. So, we have to look at it and say, how do we support it? So by calling by texting 50411 or calling 202-727-9099 anonymously, letting somebody know what's going on, it's going to help us track that and it's going to help us decide, where we can put these zones. With departments, looks like we're doing one a week right now. I don't know if it's going to continue that way or not, but so far, the program seems to be doing okay. I know not everybody is fond of it. My opinion of it is it's a good tool. It's not a be-all end-all, but I think it's another tool we can use, much like the package stuff, much like the concentration zones, much like other stuff we're doing to try to get an overall holistic approach to getting crime down, like all crime down. So I think it is a good thing. I think the way it's set up, it frustrates some people. I have people who insist they have to have a drug-free zone in an area. Some areas we can't do it. Some areas might be too big. There's a size requirement for how big the zone can be. Some areas might just be private property. Some areas might not constitute it based on calls for service or types of crime. So there are people that are going to be unhappy, unfortunately, but if you ever want to talk about it or have any questions, please feel free to email me. I'll be glad to address that. The last thing I want to just touch on.
Hey, Commander,
Sure.
sorry to interrupt.
Hmm.
Two quick questions. One, can you give that number again? You spoke pretty fast.
Oh, no problem. I'll put it in the chat too. But go ahead.
Awesome. But then also, when you say we got some good things out of the drug-free zones that were implemented, can you elaborate?
Sure. So as far as drug-free zone, we had one arrest, and we had an arrest in the drug-free zone for violating that. But right on the other side of the street from drug-free zone, we ended up getting 2 guns and a stolen car that was taken and the person who stole it. So that worked out pretty well. We also recovered drugs down there. It wasn't the same day. It was before we started the zone, but we did recover a number of some narcotics down there for a felony amount of narcotics. So by being present in those spaces, even if it doesn't happen in the zone, like say today, somebody's selling drugs down at Starburst Plaza, and we're down there, that's not part of the drug-free zone, but we still make that arrest. I think it's still effective by having it in that area. The presence, I think, is what the key is, if that makes sense. And the number is 202-727-9099 to call, and to text, it's 50411. So those are the 2 numbers you can do that, and you can do them completely anonymously. The only other thing I wanted to touch on is as far as the traffic safety, because this is Traffic Safety Month in April. We have had a high number of fatalities in DC. Most people know that, I think, who follow crime. We implemented a program back when I was a 60 investigator. We started as an inspector in 60 with PG County, which is joint border enforcement. In December, I started it here with PG County and Mount Rainier. We run it along South Dakota and Eastern Avenue, which is our shared border. We've had a great deal of success with that. If you go, I lost my slide. Sorry. I think we have over 900 tickets for the past December, January, February, March. I don't know the exact number because I'm not really bad with the view. But yeah, we are doing pretty well with that. We're going to continue it. 4D was great. They've jumped in on it with us because we're next to each other. So they are also kind of helping out and supporting us in this endeavor. So right now that's going on pretty well as well. That's all I have, Council Member. We're going to keep driving on, hopefully driving the crime down. I think that going into April, I feel really optimistic. I know it might sound odd because April last year was so bad, but I really think part of the reason was us trying to understand this new sort of trend in robberies that started occurring back then, which was all these robberies when the motor vehicle was used, where traditionally that was not really the modus operandi for most robberies in DC. Most of the robberies were catered around crime of opportunity and club zones or nightlife areas, or it was catered to like events and things like that, as opposed to this random just driving around through Brookland looking for somebody to rob type of robberies one after another. The sprees were something. So I think we're in a good space. I think we're in a good place. I think the chief and the council is really supporting us. So I think we're going to continue on. Well, we're still building up our officers. We're still trying to get more hires. Again, the council and the department has done a lot with that as far as hiring bonuses. We're graduating a class of 17 this Friday. That to me is heartening. When over the summer we were graduating classes of 10. So while it's, going to take time to rebuild, I think we're in the space we need to be in right now. And I think we're getting a lot of support, not only from you all, but from members of the community, which I'm grateful for. And I think my officers are grateful for as well. And that's all I have, sir.
Thank you, Commander. I want to lift up some praise, which I know you don't always get, from residents. And then I'm going to turn it over to Oliver to ask a few questions. There were two messages that we wanted to share with everyone that we received. It reads in part, we at Ward 5 Family Biking wanted to send a note of support for the increased presence along the MBT. While some feel MPD should only use bikes to patrol the MBT, we believe that is sort of short-sighted. Officer JP McCardle on his motorcycle is able to quickly respond to incidents because of his motorcycle. And frankly, the MBT feels safer now. Thank you to the 5D and Officer McCardle for all your support and protection. So that's one shout out. And then our friends on Bennett Place sent a note saying, as always, I thank you for being responsive to our concerns. This community has seen a tremendous positive change regarding the crime activity in the neighborhood. Your constituents here have relaxed a bit and are in the process of planning a neighborhood spring cleanup. You and your team are more than welcome to join us when that day comes. So again, another note of improvement from residents. Commander, I can't say it enough. We appreciate all the hard work that you're putting in, but as well as your team.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. I see there's a question from a commissioner, but I'm going to turn it over to Oliver to lift up that question and any others that we may have.
Hey, Commander. So we have one question from our commissioner, which is he's asking, can you comment on the burglary at the Denny? You're on mute.
I knew that, Oliver. I was testing you. Just kidding. Hey, Commissioner, how's it going? Yeah, it's still ongoing right now. We're trying to develop some suspects. If I get anything, I'll be sure to share it with you guys on Nextdoor. And that's another thing. We use that a lot here, Nextdoor. If I get any like usable BOLOs, which are be on the lookout for, which are videos or photos of people that are suspects we've identified, we're sharing with the public, we'll push those out on there, trying to get the community to help out. And but right now, we don't have enough on it. But as soon as I get more, I'll let you know, Commissioner, not a problem. And yeah, JP McCardle, I can't say enough about him as an officer. He's amazing. He's our motor officer. Everybody in Brookland knows him by his first initials, JP. He's fantastic. And this just goes to show that's one of the things we do deal with. I mean, we have a bike trail. We got the robberies down by having that motor up there, although some people don't like it. So it's always kind of like a little bit of a balancing act how you're going to do it. But we're going to continue having that thing up there. I want to make sure we keep these robberies down. I don't want to go back to where we were last year.
I have another question. Is there any update on the shooting that took place near the Brooklyn Arts Walk around 6:45, where MPD responded?
No. So the Brooklyn Arts Walk shooting, that's an interesting one because there were a lot of people out. We have nothing good on that at all. We had a very vague lookout for an individual running with a gray hoodie, but we don't even know if that was a suspect, if that was just somebody who was frightened by the shots. Nobody was hit that we know of. We had an injured person walk into the hospital around that same time frame over in Washington Hospital Center. They were not cooperative with us, but there was also signs of gunshots a little bit earlier down at Edgewood, so they might have been related to that as well. So we're still following up on both of those. We really don't have anything good on that. We did recover casings, though, from that scene.
Okay. So that was my next question was the incidents, were they related because they were in the same vicinity? So you answered that and we appreciate it.
Sure. Yeah, it's hard to determine right now.
Okay. Monday there was a contact shooting at 1800 Irving Street. Do you have any updates on that?
Yeah, I do. Well, we don't have a really good lookout for that. Both victims are going to be okay. I just want to ask this, and I'm not blaming the people who got shot at all. It's terrible. But if you see something that is illegal, it's really better to call us. You know what I mean? It's better to call the police, call us, let us come deal with it. You know, this may have stemmed from a theft of a moped or a scooter where the victims went out and tried to like sort of deal with the situation. And that's something we have to be cautious of because you never know. Again, it's not their fault that this happened, but you just never know when something like that, when the person you can be dealing with could have a firearm. And I'll give you another example. We had an instance yesterday where an individual was crossing the street. He got into it with someone who almost hit them with his car, ended up doing something to the car, and another individual ended up pistol whipping him. So you just don't know. You know, I understand we all get frustrated. I do. And again, I'm not in any way blaming people this happened to, but I tell my partner the same thing. I'm like, listen, it's better just to be cautious. If you're driving home and someone cuts you off, you want to honk, but do you want to get out of the car? Is it really something you want to do? It's probably not, because you just don't know who you're dealing with, unfortunately.
Okay. Another question is, could you speak on I know we did talk about drug-free zones, but could you speak on the process?
Yeah.
And then give us a breakdown on what the determinations are for designating an area as a drug-free zone?
Well, at the end of the day, you know, I get to say this is where I think a drug-free zone should go. And then I submit it up through the chain. And then what happens is we have crime analysts who don't decide if we get a drug-free zone or not, but they pull the data to show if it's justified. So what they look at is they look at violent crime, which is, you know, shootings, homicides, robberies. They look at dangerous crimes, weapon possession. They look at narcotics complaints. They look at narcotics arrest. And then they look at what we call quality of life crimes, which is loud gatherings, people drinking on the corner, people smoking weed on the corner, things like that. All that's kind of tallied up. And it has to also be geographically viable. So part of the act is they want it to be something that's going to work. So I think the reason this is just my opinion, but to me, the reason that the size restriction is probably on there is this. If you say, kind of like when we're doing the robbery suppression initiative, council member, I know you know when we started that. If you say, hey, I'm going to do the robbery suppression initiative in Brookland, and we're going to do it from, I don't know, we're going to do it from Rhode Island Avenue, and we're going to do it to, say, I don't know, let's say Irving, or, you know, or let's say, so that's a measurable thing. But if you say, hey, we're going to do the robbery suppression initiative, we're going to do the entire PSA, all of 504. That sort of dilutes the resources you have to cover a tight spot, right? So with the drug-free zones, it's 1,000 square feet. And I think the reason they do that is they want to make sure we can get in there, staff it properly, and still make an impact without putting a drain on staffing and without making it ineffective. I'm not sure that's what it is. That's not what we've been told. That's what makes the most sense, I guess, to me, why they're doing it that way. And they also want to measure it street to street, so we have defined boundaries. Because again, part of the purpose of this law is if you're going to have it, it has to be done properly. And it seems to me like the checks and balances are kind of put in place by the council and by the mayor and by the department and by the attorney general, where they're like, hey, we're giving you these guidelines. We don't want you to go outside of it. And I think if we try to do things like measure it ourselves, not go street to street, we're going to say Catholic University is going to be part of it, but we're not going to use streets. We're going to put it on the football field. How do we know the 1,000 feet? Is it accurate? You know, we 100% on this. I think they're really trying to give strict and stringent guidelines to it, but that's how it works. And then once it takes effect, it's in effect for 5 days. We have the signs up 24 hours ahead of time. And then it starts at 8 o'clock the following morning. And then it wraps up 5 days later at 7:59 a.m. the 5 days from there. And then that's how it goes. We do an after action report talking about if we had any arrests, if we had any stops, you know, if the community had any issues, if anyone in the community talked to us about it and things like that. That all goes into our report, and that gets sent up, you know, through our chain just for review to see if we're doing everything the way we should be doing it.
Thank you. One last question. There's been a lot of illegal dumping that has occurred in the Trinidad and Carver Langston area, as well as in Fort Lincoln. I know that you guys have the ECU, which is the Environmental Crimes Unit. What does that response look like when you have a constituent that reaches out to the Environmental Crimes Unit via email?
Sure. Well, first of all, I got to give a shout out to 6D because they had the Environmental Crimes Unit that we have sort of try to model off of, and they actually cross-trained our members. So again, you know, staffing is a challenge, and I didn't want to take members out of patrol to start a new unit. But what I did is I have some really motivated officers here who wanted to cross-train to learn how to do environmental crimes. So we sent them to 6D, the 6D Environmental Crimes Unit trained them, got them up to date, got them up to speed, got them in contact with the other government agencies that they work with here to deal with things like illegal dumping. And the way it works is this: if a citizen has an issue, sometimes ANCs come to us directly, but if it's a citizen, there's an email address. I put it in here in the chat. If you email that address, one of our people will get back to you pretty quickly about what the issue is. And then what we do is we try to look into how we can stop it. We help expedite getting it removed, obviously working with DPW and groups like that, but also we try to look at ways to combat it. And we have certain things like, we have cameras that are called trail cameras. They're like concealable cameras. We might put those up if it's public space. They don't run sound or anything like that. It's just visual. But to ID people by license plate or by vehicle that are illegally dumping, and then actually try to get warrants on them and charge them for that. Now, I just started this a little while ago. We're doing some investigations now. We haven't closed anything like that yet, but also like abandoned buildings, Oliver, that is a huge complaint. You know, Trinidad, we get a lot of calls from Trinidad about those. And what we've done is we work with Department of Buildings. The first week we really had the unit together. When they were done training, they actually went over and got 5 people out of a building. All those people were arrested for unlawful entry. All of them were charged. There was also a drug charge for PWID, which is possession with intent to distribute crack cocaine out of that same residence. They were able to get it boarded up. So that's kind of what they do. We don't do the boarding up. We don't do the removal. We do the investigation of it all. But by having this unit in place, I think it gives the citizens a way to help expedite this. I think 311 is awesome. I recommend everybody still put their concerns in through there. But I wanted to have something in place here where if you reach out, we could get a member, and not just a patrol member, because any patrol member can take a report. I wanted to have members who knew who to talk to. They wanted to really know what the environmental crimes were, because it's something officers don't deal with every day. And that's kind of the intention behind this starting this unit.
Awesome. Thank you, Commander. We had planned for 4D Captain Chapman to join us, but unfortunately, he is responding to an active incident on Georgia Avenue in Ward 4 and cannot join us. And so as a result, I am going to close out our call a bit early and give people a little bit of time back. I just want to close by thanking our partners from the Office of Gun Violence Prevention, as well as Commander Altieri for joining us. I want to thank all of you for tuning in. This video will live on our YouTube page, as well as links will be included on our website and in our newsletter, as well as all previous calls. And if you have any questions or concerns about anything that was covered here or maybe was not covered, you can always reach out to us. Our contact information is on the page here. So thank you all, and we will be in touch very soon.